If there's one thing that beginner artists are likely guilty of, myself included, it's jumping straight into the details of a painting and forgetting the whole work. Hi everyone, my name is Noor from Design Draw Do, and today I'm going to be walking through some examples of how I am relearning how to create compositions by focusing on the big shapes. This video is highly inspired by Stefan Richard, who has lessons on ArtStation that I've been binge watching, and by the way, ArtStation Learning is free until the end of 2021, so I would highly suggest that you make use of that opportunity, especially by watching Stefan's videos. All of his videos are absolutely amazing and you will not regret watching them. In fact, I have a few videos planned based on what I've learned from him. Unfortunately, today I had some filming issues, so I only have a Procreate screen record of what I've done, so please forgive me for the lack of interesting footage, but I hope it will still be a useful video. I'll be using movie screenshots from Pride and Prejudice to reference for this video. There's no reason that I chose this movie, it just happened to be the one that I found on my Pinterest, and to be honest, when you are doing studies, I would just recommend to use movie or photo references by professional photographers for this exercise, as they have already nailed great composition, so you don't have to think about actually making the composition yourself. You can just go straight into copying it and learning from it directly. All right, let's get into it. So this is the image that I actually tried to film in real time. I initially mapped out the different layers of the movie screenshot, so there was the background, the sky and the hills and the trees. And then there was the foreground with the balustrade and the characters. So that was about 5 or 6 elements, which were the main shapes that I was trying to convey. I started drawing from back to front, so it's just easier to put down the biggest mass of shape first, and then you can always keep on layering with digital. So you can either do every single shape on a different layer, or you can just do the foreground and the background on different layers, which is what I did just to keep things simple. I would suggest to use big, bold brush strokes. If you notice, concept artists don't include line work, and this is definitely something that is a preference, but if you want more of a painterly look, then I'd suggest you forego the lines. This helps you to be more loose and stop being so bogged down by the details, and you can always add in those extra details later. So basically, I got down the overall values and shapes first, and then I started making the brush slightly smaller, and I would add in more details in terms of value and just shadow and lighting and things like that. You basically have to go large to small in this case. Using this kind of method means that the eraser tool is kind of like your best friend, especially when you are carving out foreground elements which have particular or unique shapes, like characters in this case. Even though the character was drawn quite large in some places, I used the eraser tool to carve out the shape that I wanted instead of using the paint tool to add onto the shape, if that makes sense. Make sure that you don't zoom in too much and you keep the painting at the same size relatively, or at a generally small size. It's better to look at things from a thumbnail view in order to make sure that the composition works on the whole and that things are reading well. The final touch for these kinds of paintings is to really use a small brush and add the final touches like branches or leaves sticking out, or even things like hair floating, and this just gives the impression of attention to detail. I followed this process for all the paintings that I did, which you are seeing right now, and in fact I found it very difficult not to make the brush smaller and go into details, but the point of this exercise is to train your brain to see big to small and create a complete and cohesive painting, as opposed to focusing on details straight away and just not, doing the rest of the painting in the same detail. The final painting, which is the famous Lizzie in the field scene, I actually spent the most time on, and you can see towards the end I went in with a small brush and added more details like the foreground grasses and the glow around her. So even though the painting was quite loose and impressionistic, those small details really helped to just pull it together to really, really sell the image. So that's it from this video. I hope you've learned something and you've enjoyed it, and I guess I'll see you next week for another video. Bye!